It was 1928 when the Waverly Hills Sanatorium was built in Kentucky, designed to treat tuberculosis patients. The haunting reputation of this hospital didn't come from the disease, but from the unexplained occurrences that began shortly after its doors opened. Over the decades, rumors spread of paranormal sightings, disembodied voices, and sinister figures lurking in the shadows. But it wasn't just the death toll that haunted this place. There were whispers of something darker. Sarah hadn't believed in ghosts, not until she walked into Waverly Hills. She was a 27-year-old ghost hunter, working with a small crew of like-minded enthusiasts. While most people visited the abandoned sanatorium because of its creepy history, Sarah was there to investigate what others couldn't explain. She'd heard the stories, and while skeptical, there was an undeniable curiosity. Waverly Hills was known for more than its deadly past. It was the site of experiments, unsanctioned medical procedures, and rumors of unaccounted-for deaths. Many of the people who had been treated there had succumbed to tuberculosis, but it wasn't the medical condition that lingered. The spirits of those lost were said to haunt the halls to this day. Stories circulated of shadowy figures seen in the corners of rooms, voices echoing from empty wards, and strange electrical malfunctions that couldn't be explained. Sarah wasn't prepared for what she was about to experience. The team arrived just as dusk began to settle. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium stood before them like a crumbling monument to tragedy. The building loomed large, casting long, dark shadows across the grounds. The thick fog rolled in, blanketing the area in an eerie silence. As Sarah and her team walked toward the main entrance, a gust of cold wind seemed to follow them, sending a chill up her spine. The team split into two groups. Sarah, with her camera crew, headed for the second floor, known for its intense paranormal activity. She set up cameras, placed EVP devices, and made sure the lights were positioned just right. Everything was silent. Too silent. As they explored the hallways, Sarah felt the temperature drop sharply. Her breath formed frosty clouds in the air. The first sounds they heard were faint knocks coming from the walls, like someone was tapping from the inside. Sarah, being the professional, assumed it was just the building settling. The usual creaks and groans of an abandoned structure. But then the sounds grew louder. Someone or something was knocking back. Suddenly, the flashlights flickered. The team stopped in their tracks. "Did you see that?" one of the crew members whispered. A shadow darted across the far end of the hallway. But when they turned their lights toward it, there was nothing there. Just empty corridors and the smell of old wood and mildew. As they ventured deeper into the building, they found themselves in the old surgical ward, where tuberculosis patients underwent experimental treatments in the 1940s. The heavy air made Sarah's heart beat faster. The sounds of the building settling grew louder, but now there were faint whispers, indistinct voices carried on the wind. It almost sounded like they were being called, like someone was speaking directly into their ears. "Did anyone hear that?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. No one responded, but the hair on her arm stood on end. They continued walking, the tension building in the silence between them. The faint sound of footsteps echoed on the worn floors, but there was no one there. Sarah checked the monitors and everything seemed to be functioning. There was nothing on the cameras, but then they found something. At the end of the corridor, the door to one of the patient rooms was ajar. The door creaked in the breeze as they approached, and just as Sarah reached out to push it open, something stopped her. The air shifted, cold and thick, like something had just passed right by her. A voice, a whisper, came from behind her. "Get out." The voice echoed louder now, almost like a groan. A faint cry from the past. Sarah turned quickly, but no one was behind her. Her camera crew was just a few feet away, all staring at her with wide, uncertain eyes. Then the lights went out completely. Everything plunged into darkness. The only sound was the pounding of her heart in her chest. "Turn on the backup lights," Sarah shouted, but her words were swallowed by the oppressive darkness. As one of the crew members fumbled to switch the backup light, a cold wind swept through the corridor, slamming the door to the surgical ward shut with a deafening bang. A chilling, hollow laugh filled the air. Sarah felt her breath catch in her throat. The dark figure appeared in the corner of her eye. It was tall, wearing a pale hospital gown. Its face was distorted, like a mask of death. White, with hollow eyes staring back at her. Before she could react, the figure lunged toward her and the lights flickered back on. Sarah screamed as she stumbled back, her body colliding with the cold metal of a gurney. The figure was gone, vanished into the air as if it had never been there at all. "Run!" Sarah yelled, and the team scrambled, sprinting through the hospital's halls, their footsteps echoing through the darkness. The crew made it to the exit, but as Sarah stepped through the door, she glanced back to see the door to the surgical ward slowly creaking open by itself. The faint static noise from one of their EVP devices crackled in the background, but no words came through. Only the unsettling feeling of something unfinished. The temperature in the room had dropped to an unbearable low, and even though they had just run out of the building, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was following them. They rushed into their van and left the site without looking back. But Sarah knew one thing for certain. Waverly Hills wasn't just haunted by the past, it was alive, fed by the spirits of those who had passed in its walls. And no matter how many investigations took place, there would always be something waiting for the next group to step through its doors.